Hi everyone, this is Kyle with kayDbait. I just finished my last video and the one before that, and I am feeling very animated and very excited about this subject. I love debate, and maybe some of my videos are a lot slower and more mundane than these particular ones because I'm so animated about this subject, and I always get this way. Some people consider my stance to be extreme with debate, saying that it's actually to the point of ridiculousness and damaging of the subjects I try to discuss because I get so in-depth and so animated about certain things. But it's what I like, it's what I enjoy, and that's why I'm making these videos. Obviously, I wouldn't make these videos about something that didn't interest me. So, hopefully anyway, sometimes I do videos for the benefit of other people as opposed to my interest, but my interest lies in helping others. So it's kind of a pull and push in my motivations. So this video is going to be on another subject, aspect of debate, which is how to articulate an argument properly, how to inform the other person while still maintaining a form of integrity to not try and manipulate somebody. Because it's so easy to manipulate somebody into agreeing with you just by misinforming them. If you believe that iron is good for you, so you misinform them of how good it is for them, so that they eat more of it, thinking that it's some magical super veggie, then that's not fair. That is manipulation. That is not informing them of fact. That is informing them of something that will get them to do what you want. And that is, again, I can't stress, it's not a debate anymore. It is your reason for saying these things is not to inform, it is to manipulate. And there are so many examples of where people do this wrong. They do it for this agenda. And it bothers me so much. And I will continuously bring that up to the dismay of my viewers, of course, that you have to know why you're saying something and why you do something. And if you don't, then you should. So that's that. That is the stepping back part of my argument of why I'm doing these kinds of things. But anyway, how to articulate something without manipulating. How do you say something and be so informed and yet not do it too... It's so easy to fall into the trap of, I'm only saying this to make them agree with me. People believe that's the entire point of a debate. It's not. You have to stop. You have to say, I'm not doing this to win. I'm not doing this to have them renounce their previous stance and accept mine. Because that's egotistical, and that's going into it with the idea that you are already right and don't have to listen to anything they say. Oh man, he said that again. He said that. I can't believe he just brought that up. And then you have nothing to back it. You have nothing to counter it with. You dismiss it instead of countering it. So how do you do that? How do you not dismiss somebody that you disagree with? It is such a powerful force that if you disagree with somebody, you dismiss everything they say that you disagree with because if they said it, it must not be true. And it's something that I see every single day of my life, whether it be from family that just has the black sheep of the family that's weird, a friend who has this extreme view that somebody just doesn't agree with. You see it on Facebook, chat rooms, articles online, the comments on them, YouTube video comments are notorious for this, where they say, well, that person's an idiot anyway. Of course they're going to say that. But then you don't counter what they said. You just dismiss it. And anyone that looks up the information, it might not be as easily dismissible as you think. It can't just be thrown under the rug. So when you start doing that, when you start dismissing instead of countering, or even not necessarily countering because that has a negative connotation, a certain view of what you're trying to do, you can address the issue. And the vocabulary is very important in debate. If you say, they're my opponent, I have to counter their arguments. No, they're a colleague that you want to address their points with. It's very different, and you have to go into it with a different mindset. And if you go in with that mindset of they are a colleague, they are a respected information giving entity that I can learn from, then you are less likely to dismiss whether you agree or not. You are more likely to analyze, to try to understand. And in a debate format, that is one of the most important aspects. If you are not willing to listen, if you are not willing to give them at least the time to explain their views, then you are not going to learn at all. And if you do learn, it'll be by accident. And that is not good to learn from splash of information. They say, huh? What do you mean? I didn't know. And then later on it sticks with you. That's not a good way of learning. That's like walking through a library and expecting the books to give you information. You're only learning because something struck you in the head. And that's not the best way to go into a learning situation, especially for the opponent or the colleague that you're fighting with. And they don't know. Maybe they're doing the same thing as you. Maybe they're just yelling for the sake of winning as well. And it's not a sporting event. It's not something that you make money from. It shouldn't be. That would be kind of a sweet job for me, but I wouldn't do it with an agenda. I would do it as like, hey, I just informed 20,000 people of, this very important thing, and it's like defeating this misinformation robot or whatever. That would be cool, but it's not reasonable. It's not something that will ever happen. So you can't go in with that mindset that you're some gladiator to defeat your opponent. So back to the very, very first point I was talking about is, how do you go in to inform and not manipulate? Well, don't think of them as an opponent. That's what I was just saying. If you go in there with the idea that you must win at all costs, you're going to manipulate. You're going to try to coerce information or make them say something wrong so it makes them demoralized or confused. And that is wrong. Go in, make your points, acknowledge their points. Whether you agree or not, acknowledging their points is not the same thing as admitting defeat. It's not the same thing as throwing in the towel. People see it as a form of weakness because they see rigidity and stubbornness as strength, and it's not. Those things, something that is rigid, is not strong. It must be flexible in at least its ability to self-analyze and to accept information as something to look into first. Whether it's completely ridiculous or not, if somebody says the moon is made of cheese, well, we've been there. There's information against that. You don't just dismiss it as being you're a nut job. You can say that, but it's still not something that is part of a debate. If you just say, well, you're a nut job, then you are dismissing everything they say. And whether they say the moon is made of cheese or not, that's something ridiculous, obviously. But then if they say something else that is not so ridiculous, but you're already seeing them as ridiculous, then you've already dismissed them. You've already made your stance clear, and that you will not learn from other things they might say. An expert in one field is not necessarily always going to be informed about everything. And yet the media and commercials push that on you, that if you're good at one thing, then you're very good at things that are kind of related. Athletes advertising for sports material that they've never used before or have no idea how it works. Celebrities endorsing programs that they are not part of, or even if they are part of, they're only doing that because they're sponsors to that program, or they agree with the stance of that program. They don't know the specifics. They don't know how it works. They shouldn't be informing people about something because all it's doing is using their celebrity status to push something, and that's an agenda. That is something that you shouldn't do. And the same aspect in the negative should not be used in debate. If somebody has a bad reputation as being a liar, obviously you should look into their facts before you just agree with them. But you should do that anyway. You shouldn't just agree with somebody that's an expert in their field because they said something unless they're using data that has been gathered properly. If they say something that is an opinion, it is an opinion. If they say something that is contextually, analytically verified, and this is the proper informed format where it's clear and understood and it's not gray in any way it's the gravity of the moon and this, it must be made of this. It's not cheese. Cheese would not have the right gravity. You can say these things, and then maybe the person you're talking to will think about it and say, you know what, maybe. And even if they don't, even if they're adamant about it being made of cheese, at least you tried. And you didn't dismiss them. And it's very difficult to do when somebody says something you disagree with. But in even lesser extremes, where somebody just says, JFK, the single bullet theory, you have to look into it. You can't just dismiss it. Whether you believe it or not, whether it's impossible or not in your views, you still should look into it and not dismiss. Because sometimes the people that have these crazy ideas are also the ones that start the thought process to learning truth, regardless of if their original premise is correct or not. That's the importance of debate, to learn, even from the people that would be considered nut jobs by other people. It's great to talk to people with a different view, whether they're right or wrong, because then you can see why they thought it. You can learn, why did they come to this conclusion? Maybe their thought process is wrong, but it's still interesting to look at different viewpoints, because if you only have one viewpoint, you won't be right all the time. Maybe their viewpoint's really good for something else. And that's something to think about. So anyway, next video starting in a minute. Peace.